Welcome, Viking legend Dave Osborn. We're here today and just to kind of talk through a few things and have a little bit of fun. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm up and around, still moving.
That's always good, right?
Right.
Well, hey, Dave, so you were drafted in 1965. And so can you take us through kind of, you getting that call and how did the draft work back then? Because obviously it's way different than it is now. How different was that and what was that kind of feeling getting that call?
Well, I played at the University of North Dakota. And in fact, my first year, I wasn't even a starter. I was on the bench guy. And then all of a sudden, my second year, they put me in one of the games. And I gained about 80 yards and a half. And all of a sudden, they said, where'd this guy come from? So from that point on, I played for the Sioux. And we had some good teams. And I think that we won the division that year, my senior year. I think that was the last year they won the division since I've been there. But that was the good old days, we called them.
Yeah. So when you got drafted, did you get a call from, maybe someone in the front office, or how did that work back then to know that you became a Minnesota Viking?
Well, it was kind of different back then. I was called by a few teams other than the Vikings. The Vikings never once contacted me, and I think the New York Giants had called me and said, "Would you be interested in playing, for us if we draft you?" And I said, "Well, sure," because no one had contacted me whatsoever, and the Vikings never contacted me. So all of a sudden they go through the draft, and I'm waiting to get drafted by the Giants, and they did. I didn't. They went on down, and came to the Vikings. It was the 12th round. That's back when they had 22 choices. 12th round, I got drafted by the Vikings, and that was the first time I'd ever heard from the Vikings, And so then after that, they had me come down for one of the games, and we went down and watched one of the games and so forth. But that was the good old days. And then when I went in, I majored in education. I was going to be a football coach. So I assumed that, that by getting drafted by the Vikings would get me a better high school coaching job. And that was kind of my whole goal. When I went to training camp, I really didn't go to think I was going to make the team. I thought I was just going to get a better coaching job, get my name out in front. But I got there. Norm Van Brocklin was the coach, and he kept sticking me in there, and they kept cutting guys and cutting guys and cutting guys. And we had 80 rookies. 80 rookies.
Wow.
At one time, the rookies came in like 2 weeks before the veterans. So for the first 2 weeks, we had a plane would come in every day at Bemidji. They would take out 20, bring in 20. Take out 20, bring in 20. They just kept rolling them over.
Like as a tryout basis?
Yeah, tryout basis. And every week I kept calling my wife, say, well, I'll probably be on the bus. Well, every week my name was still on the roster. So I went through that whole thing. And, the thing ended holding up. Van Brocklin, who was the coach at the time, he did like me because I was a hard worker. If he said run through the wall, I ran through the wall. And so he liked that, And I didn't have the most talent. Playing at the University of North Dakota, we weren't really big time, But, I got there, and all of a sudden we were into one of the games. Started my second year, and Tommy Mason was the running back. And he was
the first draft pick of the Vikings ever.
Yeah, all pro. And we had like 5 or 6 running backs. I was I thought, the 5th or 6th one. And Tommy Mason was out there, and he all of a sudden hurt his knee. And I was way down at the other end. And all of a sudden, Norm looked down there, and he looked around a little bit, and he said, Osborne. What the hell's he calling my name for? I come running up there. He put his arm around me, looked me in the eye, and he said, get in there and see what you can screw up. And he shoved me onto the field. I was half stumbling on the field. 12 years later, I was still stumbling around out there. So that made my day.
That's awesome. Well, so also, you've said, you weren't the fastest, you weren't the strongest. So what made you kind of successful in being able to stay around?
Well, actually, believe it or not, when I got there, I never thought I was the fastest, but I turned out to be, over the years, I was the fastest guy on the team. We used to have foot races. I could beat anybody in 40 yards. I couldn't beat some of those wide receivers in 100 yards because they were sprinters, but I actually ran a 9,900 in college,
wow.
Which that was the old days when 10 flat was, if you were under 10 flat, you were. So I did have pretty good speed, but I never realized that I was as fast as I was. But when I got there and found out I could beat everybody on the team. But those days was a lot different. It was just different football. It was more of a running attack.
Yep.
And if you could run the ball, run, That was the name of the game, and that was I wasn't a pass receiver. I was a runner.
Well, and I know, and then they got Chuck Foreman later,
Yeah.
in the 70s. He became kind of some of that receiving pack to be able to complement you guys.
Chuck came. My last year was Chuck's first year.
Got it.
And when he came in, Bud asked me, he said, Dave, I want you to do one more thing. It's probably your last year. He said, take Chuck under your arm and teach him everything you know. And so that was confident. So I did. So and Chuck will say to this day that what I did for him in those days, because I wasn't worried about him taking my job, because he already had my job.
Yeah.
I was worried about him doing well for the team and developing him into something. Because, pro football then was a lot different than college. In college, if you're a good running back, you just run.
Yep.
When you get into pros, you got to run, and you got to block, and you got to catch passes. It's a lot more things you have to do.
Yeah. Well, again, I know that Chuck has actually said that, and holds you in very high regard because of that. So that's really kind of a cool dynamic. Yeah. And unfortunately, you don't always see that in today's NFL or just even in today's sports like that, of being able to kind of take on that mentor role and understanding kind of the role and sometimes the situation.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, again, during your career, obviously the Vikings were very successful, again, there. What do you think kind of made you guys, so successful and, understanding, going from a new franchise to by the kind of the late 60s, early 70s, we were one of the premier teams?
We didn't have any superstars on our teams. We just had a bunch of guys that did their jobs. And Bud Grant always said, you can't make mistakes and play this game. Make mistakes, like go the wrong way, fumble the ball, drop passes. He said, we don't have to be the biggest or the strongest or the fastest guys. We just got to do things the way we're taught to do them. Don't make mistakes. And we did. You look at our teams back in those good old days, we didn't have any real superheroes, the fastest guys, the biggest guys, the strongest guys, but we just had a group of guys that did their job and didn't make mistakes. Like Bud, if you weren't halfway smart, you didn't play on a Bud Grant team. Mm-hmm. You had to know what you were doing. Anything that Bud hated was a mistake. You could make a physical mistake, get tackled, get beat, miss a block. That was all part of football. But don't make a mental mistake. That wasn't part of football.
Yeah. So what was it like going from Norm Van Brocklin to Bud Grant and kind of that transition, either, coaching style, personality style, team dynamics?
It was almost going like night and day. It's like going from the dark into the sunshine. Everybody played under constant fear with Van Brocklin because he was that type of coach. And with Bud, no one feared Bud, but Bud was a disciplinarian. You did it this one way, and that was Bud's way, and it's usually the best way, and that's the way we did it. And that's what all the teams we had with Bud, we didn't have a lot of superstars on that team at the time. We didn't think we were superstars. Maybe now you look back, maybe we were. But Bud kept it simple. We didn't have fancy plays and all this stuff. Just keep it simple. Don't make mistakes. That was Bud's biggest thing. If you don't make mistakes, we can win the game. And that's kind of what we did.
Yeah, it's like the mental errors add up.
Yeah,
That's
exactly right.
So, looking at today's current NFL, so what running backs do you kind of, look at and admire, and also what running back would you kind of compare to like your style? And again, I know that the games are really kind of different, but is there somebody that you kind of, say that was kind of like me, or is there another running back that you go like, really like him?
I really don't think there's any running backs that around like Bill Brown and Dave Osborn were.
Yep.
We were the two of a kind, and there was a lot of us, other guys too. But we would run over you, run through you. Today, you have to be a running back. You have to be real fast and real quick, and hit and spin and catch the ball. Really be a good. In our day, we caught passes, but we didn't catch deep passes. We caught short passes, a little swing outside, dump you the ball, let you run, get you on a one-on-one situation where you could run over someone and boom, 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 Brown. A lot of people get in front of him. He'd run over you. He'd hurt you. He was like a bull. He'd just put that head down. And when you put that head down and hit somebody, I always figured you could probably get another 3 or 4 yards just by diving ahead. And that's kind of what we did. There was only one guy that you couldn't run over in this league, and that was Dick Butkus. You went through there and you hit Dick Butkus, boom, you stopped right now. You didn't get another yard. But most guys that played linebacker, so forth, I always felt if I could hit them, get my head down, I could drive them back 2 or 3 yards and get extra yards, but not with Butkus.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, what would, if you remember like one of your hardest hits and being tackled, would it be Dick Butkus then?
You know, and he actually made comments later in life too, after football, that who was the toughest 2 running backs you've ever played against? And I was one of the 2. He named 2 of them, and I was one of the 2 that he named.
That's a pretty big honor,
especially
coming from a defensive linebacker.
From a guy like him. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, so, Megan, throughout your career, you've obviously had a lot of accomplishments. So one of them I think is really kind of cool that not everyone, even the greats, sometimes get it, is you were actually on the cover of Sports Illustrated for one of them.
That's exactly right. Not too many people get on the cover of Sports
like
Illustrated.
I said, even like some of the MVPs and things like that sometimes don't,
Back in that day, it wasn't a big deal like it is today. Today it's probably a bigger deal today, but no, those magazines keep showing up. People mail me some, having me autograph them and send them back. And, like you had some here today and so forth.
Yeah.
So, we call them the good old days.
Yeah. Do you remember that game against the Rams?
Yes, I do, because they were supposed to beat us. That was the first big major game that we beat. We were playing them, and they were supposedly a better team than we were, and they were supposed to beat us. And they didn't. We beat them. We won. Then we played Cleveland. We beat Cleveland. Then we went to Super Bowl, and no comment.
Yeah, I was to say against the Chiefs. Yeah. No, that's really awesome. So, again, during your career, did you ever have any like superstitions, or did you ever have like kind of a routine kind of before games or after games? It's always kind of interesting hearing, some people it's dietary, sometimes it's music, sometimes it's exercise. Did you ever have any kind of a routine?
No, I never did. I just. I went at every practice, every game, the same way. I mean, my philosophy of everything I ever did was go 100-mile-an-hour all around, and I always have done that. I've always done that.
Yeah.
Always go wide open. Practice. The guys in practice used to tell me, slow down, because I'd run in practice, and I'd go around the end, run the sweep, and we're running 9/10. We weren't supposed to be live, but if they got in my way, I ran over them. So they knew when I used to run a play in practice, and I went around that end, guys would scatter because they say, I ain't going to let him run over me.
It's practice, Dave.
I went wide open all the time.
Yeah. So what do you remember about Mankato and training camp?
Well, we went down to Mankato, and that was different than Bemidji.
Yep. Because you guys used to be in Bemidji.
Bemidji, and Bud Grant was a coach, and Bud Grant ran it a lot different. And it's getting to the point where then we had a lot of people come and visit and watch, because it was closer to the cities. So we had a lot of, every day you had fans all around the field watching us practice and so forth, And we kind of call those the good old days where, we played for fun. We didn't make near the money. Like I always tell people, my first year, I made $9,000. And, my third year, I was the second leading rusher in the National Football League. And I made $12,000. But then I got a raise. Man, I went all the way up to $15,000 after that good year. And so, times are a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, $15,000 bought more then than it does today. But not.
It's still not equatable anywhere near.
But back in my day, if you got up to $50,000, like I think Tarkington was making $50,000 or $60,000, that was a lot of money. It still is, but that was the top dog. Nowadays, they're millions.
Yeah. Well, no. So, sometimes we don't like to talk about it, but the end of your career, kind of take us through, again, what that was kind of like. Obviously, you had the last year here with the Vikings.
Yeah.
I hate who you ended up with last year, but kind of take us through, though, that, again, understanding, maybe the end of the road a little bit and how you kind of went about that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of figured, after I was a starter for 11 years, I guess there, almost 10 years. I was on the backup my first year, and then I was a starter for 10 years. And then, but in my last year, I knew I was ready. I was ready to retire. I had enough. You get the point that you just said, I've done this enough. I've had enough. I've proved everything I want to prove. So, I knew when I went out, I wasn't really disappointed when I went out after my 12th year. Bud always gave everyone a token year. My 11th year was kind of my token year. My 12th year, I came back, and I was the last cut right before And I knew that was going to happen, you know. But Bud wanted me there mainly to help coach the new guys. Because he always told me with Chuck Foreman, like he said, take him under your wing, teach him everything you know, because he's your replacement. You know, and I did that.
So was that 74 then that you went to training camp and got cut, or that been 73?
That'd been 74. Yeah,
74. Okay, because you were with Chuck his entire rookie year.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
So back then, did you guys get paid throughout training camp too? So like, were you almost kind of like compensated as a coach, or did that not kick in?
Well, I think we got $120 a week in training camp. No, we didn't get paid. We got a token fee, enough to buy groceries, I guess. But no, your pay didn't start until when the season started. If there was 12 games, you got 1/12 of your salary for each game. And training camp was a token deal. It was $200-300 a week, something like that.
Got it. Yeah. So yeah, obviously, again, when you did get cut, so what happened then after that?
Well, when I got cut, I guess I kind of knew that was coming, So when I was released, it wasn't a big disappointment or anything to me, because I kind of knew I'd seen it in the future, So I went away happy. I went away thinking I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in football. And
so who'd you finish your career with, though?
Well, Green Bay.
So how did that kind of come about then?
The season was half over. We were in the middle of the season, my 12th year. And I was up in North Dakota, out in the blind where I go every fall, hunting ducks. And my cell phone, the phone rang. And it was calling me down. Hello, who's this? Bart Starr. Bart, he said, where are you at, Dave? I saw him up in North Dakota hunting ducks. He said, you want to play for us? I said, yeah. He said, how soon can you be? How much? He always said, how much you want to come down over here? I said, well, the season's half over. I was making $60,000. I need $30,000. He said, done deal. When can you be here? And I said, well, I'm in North Dakota now. He said, we want you here at practice tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I said, well, okay. He said, we'll pick you up with a Learjet. So I drove home 4 hours from hunting, told Bev, pack me a bag, I'm leaving. They flew in with the Learjet in the Air Lake. I went out, jumped on the plane, flew over there, was there for time for practice the next morning.
Wow.
And I played quite a bit, because they had guys get hurt. They didn't have anybody. They had 2 or 3 backs, and they all got hurt, so they needed a body.
Yeah. Did you end up playing the Vikings then when you were there?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
we did play the Vikings.
That had to have been weird.
Yeah, it was really weird standing there with that green uniform on.
Yeah.
It was weird.
So during the off seasons when you had your playing career, I know like we talked about like the salaries were not up to like what they are now. Did you have another job like in the off season? How did that dynamic work? And what was the job?
When I first started, the day the last season was, I was in a classroom teaching school on Monday morning. I went back to Grand Forks where I went, and they needed a teacher. I went back. I was going to go to graduate school and get my master's degree, and got back there, and a teacher had died during Christmas vacation, a history teacher. I wasn't a history major, but they hired me. They said, Dave, can you teach history? I said, I guess I'd give her a try. So I taught school full time, went to graduate school in the afternoons, evenings, and nights, to get my master's degree. And I done that. I taught school for 2 years, but then after that, I started playing more, and we moved down here, and I stayed down
Got
here.
it. Did you have a job down here in the off season?
Oh,
or
yeah,
no?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were those? What kind of jobs were those?
The retail advertising. I worked for a company it sold ads going papers, copy duplicating products. They sold office products, copy machines, and so forth, and told retail advertising. So I done that, and I was pretty good at it.
I say, yeah.
But I could get. What was good about it, I could get in any door. That's the biggest thing. Once I got in, I had them.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, saying Dave Osborn, Minnesota Vikings also is kind of nice too.
Oh yeah, always got in. Always let me in.
Yeah. Well, so after your career, again, like I know, a couple things. I know you're a skilled woodworker, and you've been kind of doing some things, after kind of football. Take us through that. Again, how did you get into woodworking? And what has that been like? Well,
it's kind of just like I say, it's a hobby. But I started. I bought a turning lathe, and I started grinding, I started making pens, put them on there, and I'd make pens. Somebody else was doing that, so I done it. Then I went from pens to bowls and dishes. I still do it today. I make nice wood bowls and so forth, and they really come out pretty nice.
And honestly, they're beautiful. They're awesome. I have a couple of the pens in my office. They're my favorite ones.
People think I know what I'm doing, but I really don't.
Well, and what's great too is, again, like I know a lot of people can see your woodworking at daveosborn41.com. And I know you kind of have a website, and it's been kind of fun, having you be able to kind of do this. And I know you do some of the memorabilia stuff and things like that in some events. So I know one of the big things that you do is, again, at Paul Krause's, he does watch parties in Webster. And I know you love to kind of go to those and kind of make an appearance. What's kind of fun about those,
Well, all the people that come to those watch parties are all avid football fans. And most of them are older guys. I mean, when I say older, maybe not my age, but they're guys that are in their 70s maybe. That's old, But and they come to those things, and they watched us play when they were kids, so forth. And they get a good crowd. It's kind of it's fun. It's enjoyable.
What I also love about it too is you do get, again, the people that are older, and they're literally bringing their kids or now even grandkids and introducing them. And, obviously it's been really cool for like the kids to be able to get to talk to you and say, yeah, you played for the Minnesota Vikings. Because again, the game has become sometimes so big and things like that, like appearances and meet and greets are so different now. It's of like stand in a line here and then kind of go on. That's what I think is so great about some of the Paul Krause ones is you can literally sit next to Dave Osborn, Paul Krause, talk about some of these games, and then watch the game.
And then sit there and you sign pictures, sign autographs, do everything. It's really a social event. Yeah. And like I say, Paul does it out of Webster, and as us guys come in, and it's a fun deal for everybody.
Yeah. So really encourage the audience that's listening. Again, you can check it out at sportslegendsusa.com, as well as you can also connect with Dave at daveosborn41.com. Dave is also on social media and looks to do, again, more fan connect. So Dave, I want to appreciate, and thank you kind of for coming in today. This has been an awesome time, getting to know a little bit more of kind of your past and having a little bit of fun here, chopping it up. So thank you.
You bet. Enjoyment being here.
Yes. Skål.
Vikings.